Hello everyone, my name is Tyler. Welcome to Tyler's Guide. Today's video we're going to be talking about how to overcome bad habits, and I'm going to be getting a little specific into kind of breaking down the thoughts or like whatever's going on mentally while you're trying to quit bad habits and start consistently doing the right things. Whether it's a pit in your stomach, an increased heart rate, or just a heightened sense of pressure in general, we all know the feelings of discomfort. The real question is, how do you respond to it? Do you step up to the plate and face that discomfort head on, or do you crumble to the pressure? Honestly, you might even just choose to avoid it altogether. Regardless of your reaction, though, they all have one thing in common. They greatly influence the trajectory of your life. Now, the preferred trajectory obviously is more often than not the result of someone facing discomfort rather than avoiding it. This video is going to be kind of building upon the information covered in the last video. What is growth mindset? How can it transform your life? Now, when you have this growth mindset, you're ready to grow. The challenges and uncomfortable things that used to have you down are now fertile ground for you to grow. However, the subtle discomfort of resisting urges or bad habits and making the right choices is often where many people find themselves struggling. You know eating that slice of cake is wrong, you're on a diet, you resist it for as long as you can, until next thing you know, you ate the whole cake. No? Is that just me? But regardless of the specific situation, we all have these urges, and our minds seem to do anything they can to get us to give in. And that's why in today's video, I'm going to be explaining how to recognize and deal with this discomfort. I'm going to do this by providing my personal examples, a little bit of a spiritual aspect, some psychological aspects that are in play, and then also I'm going to be sharing my personal method for managing these urges and bad habits once and for all. I'll start off by expressing one of my biggest issues, which is avoiding discomfort associated with bad habits. To this day, I still tend to avoid feelings that make me uncomfortable, and I'll usually subconsciously label them as bad or some things to avoid. Honestly, quitting and limiting my vices makes me uncomfortable. Managing my emotions and having a healthy argument makes me uncomfortable. Even just having a normal sleep schedule makes me uncomfortable. And it's these very same feelings of discomfort that really have limited my growth for a decent period of time. All it took though was just a change in perspective. I knew what a growth mindset was for the longest time, and I genuinely was seeking things that would make me grow. I was taking risks, I was trying new things, and I was finally trusting that I could succeed if I allowed myself to fail. Yet I was still struggling with some of the smaller things like the ones I just mentioned. And this continued until I finally came to a realization. I realized that I thought I was finally comfortable feeling discomfort, but mainly I was just overcoming fears. Now, that's a pretty good thing for me to be proud of, but it wasn't so obvious to me that I still had not become comfortable being uncomfortable. There was a subtle difference between the discomfort of a challenging situation and the discomfort of resisting the urge to kind of lose my shit on somebody in an argument. And it's the things like that that you know they're the right thing, but because it's not something that you were doing the wrong thing for a while, right? You weren't doing the right thing. And now you want to do the right thing, but your brain is just on the loop of what you used to do. We're all based on patterns, right? So it's going to feel uncomfortable breaking that pattern of what your brain already knows as like, oh, this is what I do. This is how I behave. But anyways, it was at this point that my mind would do anything it could to do what it wanted and avoid the uncomfortable feelings of self-control. I knew that things were wrong, but I still found plenty of ways of coping and justifying my decisions. The real change came when I specifically realized that, oh, I'm doing the same exact thing here. Resisting my bad habits makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm just avoiding the discomfort by continuing them. This was when I was finally able to catch myself in the moment and start shifting from the things that were pushing me towards the urges or the bad habits and switching to the other way, thinking differently, different behaviors, different actions. And that was when I finally started making the right choices a lot more consistently. So, enough about me. Let's talk about what's really going on here. What is it about bad habits or urges that makes us so uncomfortable? From the perspective of Eckhart Tolle, who is a spiritual teacher, and he's written a couple books. One of them is called New Earth. The other one is The Power of Now. Great books. Definitely read them. Not sponsored, by the way. But he argues that it all comes down to our ego. Our egos always seek to find what we're lacking, and it tries to fill that void that it's perceiving. So in that case, it's going to be filling the void with entertainment, distraction, food, whatever your bad habit or urges are leading you to. From Eckhart's perspective, the discomfort that drives us to act out our bad habits is nothing more than an untamed ego. Even when we recognize that these things are bad for us, the ego wants to maintain itself, and it's going to do anything to just keep us doing the same things. However, doing the same things and expecting different results is literally the definition of insanity. So that's why it's on each of us to conquer our egos and maintain self-control. Or maybe that's just what my ego wants me to think. So basically, the ego is the culprit here. And there are ways of controlling the ego, but right before we get into that, there's a couple important psychological things that should be mentioned. I think that once you understand these two simple things, it really puts it into perspective of like, oh, this is what's going on actually with the thought process, and makes it a lot easier to identify that and start changing it. So the first one is cognitive dissonance. This is just that uncomfortable feeling you get when your thoughts or your actions don't match your beliefs. So imagine you're on a diet, but you just ate a giant slice of cake. Your brain is going to do all these different things to try and justify the contradiction between your action and what you believe is right. It's like having this internal argument where your brain is trying to reconcile two opposing things, which often leads you to adjust your beliefs or justify your actions to ease this tension, which leads to the other concept of rationalization. Rationalization is the art of making excuses sound reasonable. It's when your brain's doing everything it can to cope and justify why you're doing the things you're doing when you know you shouldn't be. So, for example, it could be like, oh, it's my cheat day, you tell yourself as you're having a slice of cake for like the third time this week. And sorry I keep bringing up cake. It sounds really good right now and I can't get it off my mind. But anyways, it's crucial to be able to catch yourself attempting to rationalize these things so you can start to challenge them and hopefully start to resist them. To be perfectly clear, this realization and shift in perspective, it's not going to happen overnight. Even when I understood these things perfectly, I mean, I went to school for these and my behavior still did not change for a decent amount of time. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. However, I believe that once we realize certain things about ourselves that stray away from our reasonably set self-standards, we should make a conscious effort to improve. And here's exactly how you can start doing that today. It all comes down to one thing, or that's two, just one: mindfulness. If you aren't mindful, it's just not going to work out. We have to remember that a lot of these thoughts, a lot of these actions, they're leading us to the wrong choices, but they're also habitual. And this means that they're going to happen fast and without much thought. So with mindfulness, I have a kind of step-by-step process on how you want to be mindful in these specific situations. Number one, you want to recognize the pattern of feelings. So the key here to start is you got to be able to recognize the feelings that are leading you towards the things that you don't want to do. They're pushing you to feel this void so that way you fill it. Are you feeling discomfort that pushes you towards the wrong decision? You just got to stay strong and realize that all they are is feelings and they're not permanent. They're going to go away after a little bit of time, sometimes more time than others, but the key thing is they go away. You're going to be able to recognize these feelings if you start meditating and journaling. And now I'm not going to go too deep on how to do that. At this point, you should probably know that. If not, look up a guide. I might have one. But basically, they help you gain awareness of your patterns of thought and feelings. This allows you to be aware of them, and then you're much more likely to just notice them in general. Number two, do not give in to rationalization. Now you know what it is. Now it's on you to be on top of that. You realize that you're considering the urge, right? You're in the moment, it's happening, you picked up on it. Is your mind giving you a million reasons to rationalize why you should or should not do something? Maybe it's going to throw thoughts at you like, why quit smoking? You're still getting what you need to get done, and it feels good, right? You got to be able to sit with these thoughts and not let them influence your actions. The third thing you're going to want to do is question yourself. Why are you so drawn to this thing or behavior? Is it just something you did for a long time and it made you feel better or something like that? What void are you trying to fill? Do you not see friends and family enough, so you use alcohol or drugs to cope? Are you overstressed from working and using binge eating to relieve the stress? These are the kind of things you need to figure out, because once you identify what the problem is, like why you're drawn to these things, then you can start to go to step number 4, which is identify replacements. So if you feel drawn to X, replace it with Y. So for example, if you're drawn to play video games for 5 hours, even though you have a project due you need to have done, take a short walk, technology free, and just see if the urge goes away. Then come back and do what you should do, which in this case would be the project. And this same thing's going to apply to thoughts. There's a million reasons not to do something, but all it takes is one why to silence those out. So when you're getting the rationalizations of like, oh, I just want to do this a little bit, with you want to replace that with, I'm choosing to do this because I want to accomplish blank. The fifth and final thing is be firm, but don't beat yourself up. Obviously, the goal here is to do the right things. But again, we are not perfect and we're going to fail. It's a guarantee. It's going to happen. Accept it. You want to make yourself more miserable. You don't want to make yourself more miserable in your mission to be less miserable. If you mess up, just acknowledge it and take measures to do better next time. Remember what you felt after you did the wrong thing, whether it's guilt or shame or just disappointment. You know, it doesn't have to be too deep. But remember how you felt and use that going forward as motivation not to do it anymore. A problem that I sometimes have is I like a good bowl of cereal before I go to bed, you know? And you eat a bowl of cereal before you go to bed, you wake up the next day, you're still feeling it. So I know it's wrong, but sometimes I still do it anyways. And I wake up the next morning just feeling like crap. And I'm like, I gotta remember this for next time. But just don't get angry at yourself and feel worse about yourself, because then it just sucks, right? You gotta love the journey, not the destination. And if you're feeling more shitty by trying to be better, right, then you're probably just gonna push yourself to go back to the bad habits or the urges, whatever it may be. Now, while this all might seem simple on paper, it does take a long time and consistency to see any results with this. If you haven't really been mindful before, or even if you're kind of new to it, it's a different way of thinking, right? It's literally a different way of using your mind and interacting with the world. It's not going to be enough to just do this for a week and expect a crazy change. Mindfulness gives us the opportunity to make a change, but it's ultimately going to depend on the commitment of the individual. Commitment to overcoming hard to break habitual thoughts and actions. Commitment to wanting to be better. And that's it. That's all I got for y'all today. In the end, it really just comes down to the thought processes and commitment, right? Now you understand, oh, this is why I was doing this. You know, it used to work out for me, but now I'm trying to grow as a person, which means I have to leave some things behind. I have to change. That's hard. We all know it is. It's hard for everybody. But now that you understand the thought processes, it makes it a little bit easier. And now you have my personal technique for being mindful in the moment. And you're going to be able to start noticing what's going on, how you're feeling, why you're doing it. And you're going to be able to start replacing it and just preventing yourself in general in the moment without having to do it and then just be like, I regret that. Did you find this information to be useful or relatable or both? What specific habit are you going to be breaking? Let me know in the comment section down below. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more content pretty similar to this. We're going to be exploring the mind, fixing some stuff. But yeah, if you like reading, make sure you check me out on my blog, tylersguide.us. I cover the exact same topics on there, just in writing form. Anyways, thanks again for stopping in today, checking out the content, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care, everybody.